Not going to waste any more time on this. Going to cut the back end off this chassis. At least I can see where I am then. So really the objective here is to really cut it where it has been welded on. So cutting up the sides underneath. The back end will drop off. Obviously I should work on the underside first, on the undercroft, and then reposition myself to the above side, so that I'm not going to end up with a fucking great lump of green metal landing on me, which I really don't need. So, right, let's get on with this. Cut all the way around, and it's not really giving up its grip, and I've just realised that this wedge here on the back here is over and above the box section, and of course you can see the box section is still welded on at the bottom there. So I'm going to have to cut a bit more into this piece on the top here so I can get in and cut through the main section underneath it. But we'll have this off in a jiffy. Well, it's off. Get Mr. Torchy. And inside this chassis rail, this is the original chassis rail, of course. Spectacularly good. I think a really solid car here was fucking bobtailed. There's a big patch on the inside here, you can see there where the torch is shining now. There's a big patch on the outside where it's patched over a hole. Yeah, so I think my trick now is going to be cutting off the rest of this, because obviously the box section for this thing was a lot wider than the chassis rails were. There's a small hole down here, but we can soon fix that. I'm going to cut this metal back here. The welding here, by the way, wasn't done by the same person, anywhere near the same person who did the other welds on this car, like the front engine mount. So whoever did this actually could weld. It's not a lightweight piece of kit, this. That's got a fair amount of weight to it. But interestingly, there's more rust in this than there is inside the chassis rail, which is actually in really good shape. Like I keep saying, there's hope for this thing yet. Well, I'm pleased that's off anyway. It's a bit of a laugh, isn't it? And yeah, the heavens opened, but then it stopped. Terrible day today. I mean, like all the way through May, beautiful weather, gets into June, and the weather's shite. Right, so tidying out some of this crap now. What are we? 5:15. I might give up on the angle grinder now, and get on with this again tomorrow. But fire watch now, I think. Anyone want this? A fair amount of steel there. Big old box sections, whatever they are. Those box sections are... Pause. Resume. Right, these box sections are 4 inches, 10 centimetres square by the looks of things. Yeah, 4-inch square box sections. That's fairly substantial there, and you can see the steel is getting on for, I would say that's 6-7 mil thick steel. Massively over-engineered compared to what the original chassis was. I mean, if this thing had ever needed to, you know, use the strength of this this device, which was welded onto the back of the chassis, I'd imagine the chassis would have crumpled rather than this. So I think the chassis on these things is about 2 mil, 2 or 3 mil. You can't see here really. Oh, there we are. That piece there, that's original chassis. That's about 2 mil, I reckon. Oh, we found a hole. It's the only hole I found on the suspension turrets anywhere. I'll be able to patch that, I'll cut it off and weld in a good replacement. Today's job, I want to line up where these rear mountings need to go to. So this is a rear sill mount. And I thought, well, I was thinking about it actually, and I thought, well, I can either measure from one side to the other, because I've got this as a baseline, but then getting an accurate measurement when we've got the box section above the top there, it's not going to be so straightforward. Then I was thinking, shit, we could use a bit of Pythagoras, couldn't we? I knew it was useful to something when I learnt it at school 35 years ago. So I'm just starting to set up the framework now. So what we'll do is we'll start one side of the triangle to go across the front there. The other side will go across there, and the hypotenuse will go diagonally across the middle. And then you see I can flip it over and do the other side. It makes sense? But I just need to cast my mind back a very long time. Very, very long time to work out exactly how I'm going to do this. I've got the measurements here on the piece of paper, so I know the measurement from the front of that to the back, to the very, very back, which I've got on the chassis still. Right. Right. I think we're here. I think we are where we need to be. Got this edge square using my trusty set square. 90 degrees, bang on. Got the two angles perfect over there. Got this piece of very straight wood. It is straight, I've checked it, parallel to the chassis rail. I've got some 8mm coach bolts, which I've dropped down through the body mount holes on the two front outriggers. Now this outrigger here is weakened because of this gas action here. But what I did was I got it straight on this edge. I'm going to have to chop the end off this one and replace it, or chop the whole damn thing off and replace it. It's not the best. It really isn't. But the amount of work I'm doing on this chassis, I might as well do it properly, eh? And then, yeah, got it all. That piece of steel there has nothing to do with it. That was just me taking reference points. Measure, 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 and then cut. Is the trick with this. Now, what I'm going to do next, because this chappy up here didn't actually come off this chassis. So the problem we've got now is that if I was to butt weld that on there, you can see for a start if it's too wide. It is too wide. So I shall measure the width of this piece here. I should probably, when I cut it off straight, I don't know. Measure the width of this piece here, align it with that, cut very, very slightly back on the back here, just so I can kind of, yeah, get it aligned, roughly aligned. And then obviously when it all ends up being aligned, then I can drop the bolt through the mounting hole, put a couple of tack welds on it, and we can have this outrigger welded back on again. I just put the furniture clamps on there because I wanted to keep a single reference point. So I measured from the edge of here to here, kind of on the horizontal. So we've got 31.6 millimeters. Centimeters, what are you talking about, Richard? I got that aligned. So I got this piece going parallel across the chassis. Then I got this piece going parallel up here. Then I had the datum point from that bolt hole to this bolt hole. So I was able to drill that. And then once that meets up over there, we know we've got a triangle. A right angle triangle. And Mr. Pythagoras, thank you very much, is all I'm going to say. Because while I could have done it without Pythagoras, it does make it easier where you can double check the measurements and check the angles, because these little things, they're very good. You can kind of, I can't do it quite so easily on this because I can't stick the thing right up into the corner, but I can check that is somewhere around the 47 degree mark there. So we've got 45, 47 and a half, so it's probably about 48 degrees. And then the other one correspondingly does the same thing. And then when I've done this outrigger, I can just flip the whole assembly over and do that outrigger. Make sense? There we are. Who thought I'd ever use Pythagoras again? Long time ago. Right. In other news, I've been talking to a chap who's breaking up a 200 TDI Disco. It's got the square box chassis, the same style as this, but what effectively I want to do with this thing is if I can take it from here, what I'll do is I'll keep hold of this bit, but I will cut through here, along the top and along there, and kind of do a dog leg, so I'm getting the maximum amount of welding on it. And see if I can get it all welded back into one chunk. It'd be nice to have this thing back to full length again. Momentous occasion. Range Rover 50th birthday from launch tomorrow as well, so I thought I'd better do something with this. It's Wednesday the... I should know the pissing date. 17th. Make sense? I suppose even when I come to replace that outrigger right there, I should use the same frame, because I'll end up cutting this off, I think. Just take the whole outrigger. Because while it's not flexible, I can bash this around with a 5-pound hammer, and it does move, but it's not flexible. It just needs something better than that, doesn't it? It's not the tidiest. I want to go into all this effort. And that's obviously the mount bolt. Goes down there. Oh, if anyone knows where I put all of my body mounts, I got a big box from somewhere, and I'm buggered if I can find them. They've disappeared. They've been taken up. Nicely done though, eh? What do you think? Get it square. Now, just noticed that as well. There's a huge blob of weld there. Do you reckon that's factory? No, I think that's where, possibly, where he's been welding above on the floor pan, and it's dripped down. It'll come off. I'll just grind it back flat again. Well, I've got that proper warm. It's aligned. It's in the right place. Obviously, the welds need flatting back, and I need to fill in this piece on the back here now. There was a fair amount of reshaping required, because I don't know if they, when they cut whatever mounts off, but these aren't exactly square, but it did the job. I'm happy with it. It's more or less where it should be, so I need to get a sill section next and just double check it fits. Yes, I think so. It's the old test of foot. When I turn the chassis upside down, I will weld on the inside as well, and obviously dress it back with a finger file. I don't do welding upside down. There's no point welding upside down. I'm just going to turn the chassis upside down at some point in the near future. Right, that's that one done. Almost. Right, one of these chunks of metal over here on the floor is for this edge down here, so I'm going to work out, once this is all cooled down, of course, because it is scorchio right now. A nice big fire on the inside here, some underseal cool, cool fire or something, I guess. So that's straight. It does look straight. I'll double check that. I might need to cut this and bend it back out. I'm not sure if that's straight along there. I think it is. It's just the weld is making it look like it's not straight. And in answer to my own question, yes, it is straight. It's only just this tiny little bit right on the end here, but the actual section's gone on dead straight against the arm. So I think it was just the welds that were sitting a little bit proud that gave the optical illusion that it wasn't straight. Well, that's that welded on then. That's all right in there. Cooled down now, but a little bit of shitty weld there. It's gone on nice, it's gone on square, it's gone on straight. It matches my Pythagoras kind of measurements. I need to grind the welds back, obviously, but then it got a bit too late to be using the angle grinder, so yeah, mindful of the neighbours and all that. So then I just started cleaning back the chassis areas, and there's an astonishing amount of original paint on this chassis. Come back a little bit. So all those dark areas on the chassis along this rail here, that's all original paint. And underneath it you can see the red oxide. It's been all the way along. I've actually come to the conclusion as well that that is not something that has been dropped down from above. Look at this shit up here. Oh, this is always impressive. You could tell when the master has welded a rail and then someone within a hangover, or the apprentice has. I think it was running a bit too slow on the line, maybe. I'm going to leave that. That's all kind of authentic kind of Land Rover welding. You know who did this one? Anyone who worked at Lode Lane in early 1971. Is that your signature welding? Anyway, the rest of this is all looking nice. Again, you can see quite a lot of original paint inside, on the inside of this rail, and I've worked my way along it. I've cleaned pretty much the entire length of the rail up to the rear cross member. I'll be going around tidying up the top edges in here, and while it's got a lot of surface corrosion on it, it is literally just surface corrosion rubbed off. See what I mean? Good chassis. The only disappointments are that in here, in this area here, I've got some holes. So in order to fix those properly, I'm going to have to cut this section off. It's probably easier to cut the outside edge off than the inside edge. If I cut it off, then I can weld it back on again afterwards, and I can fix the holes underneath. And someone had filled it all up with bitumen. You can see the hole there. Check out the chicks. They're all standing out of the nest. They come out of the nest. They're sitting on top of the wood. It's fucking hot in here today. So there's too many of them now. They're all having to sit outside the nest. Silly arseholes. Rear axle is off. Piece of cake really. Just supported the chassis on a couple of axle stands. Used the Mr. Windy gun and whizzed out the nuts on the main kind of training arm rods, and here they are. Yeah, I shall leave these bars on for the short term, just makes life easier while I'm messing around with this thing. Key thing I wanted to look at on here was the quality of the actual axle casing. A lot of this shit would appear to be surface related. So I'm going to give it a good going over, get all the brake lines and shit off it, strip it all down. There is one thing I have noticed. Check this out. I honestly don't think that was doing anything at all. I should imagine that was clonking like a bastard. Yes. There wasn't much love given there, was there? Right. These calipers don't look too bad on the back here. I mean, if they're... trouble is, I'd need to service them. Which would mean putting the repair kits on there again. Look what we got here. I think we got a rear hub seal gone here. Oh. And yeah, this side's less damp, but that's, I suppose, yeah, the giveaway was the oil, the axle oil, all down the inside of the tyre. There's the axle number, proudly in place there. I don't know if this has been welded before. I'm probably going to have to take the differential out anyway and see what sort of state the diff pan's in. It's quite common for the rear diff pan to rot out. The rest of this though doesn't look too bad actually. Let's tip him right over. This is where it's quite neat having these arms on, you see, because you can tip him up. The axle casings actually look pretty sound, because I had to replace a lot of these chunks on the 72 car. Oh, I love this. Look at that. So we've done the nut up and we're going to put a nail through to hold it in place. It's effective. It does the job. These dampers need to come off as well. I'll get those off in a second. Yes. But the diff works, which is good news. You can tell the diff works because one wheel will go backwards and the other one will go forwards. So the differential's working, it's not broken. Going to need to get it out though, and in order to get it out I'll need to pull both half shafts out. In order to pull the half shafts out I'll need to get these comedy wheels off. And yeah, I think over this weekend I'm going to refurb this axle, get it all completed. I need to put an order in for my de-rusting kit. So when it comes to this chassis, what I would normally do, and I get a lot of the products I use from Rustbuster. No commercial link, there is no paid product endorsement in this video at all. But what I do is I use like a chlorinated wash. But basically it's a salt wash to get all the salt off the chassis. And there's a fair amount of sand and shit on this. So you mix it in with a hose pipe on a pressure washer or whatever. I can't remember the exact way I did it before, but I think I just put it on a hose pipe and wash the chassis down. And it gets rid of all of the rust off the surface. Then it's a case of degreasing where I need to degrease. I've not seen the bottom yet, but there's a lump of degreasing needing over there. There's probably going to be a wedge around the front end of the chassis. You can see there's quite a lot of degreasing needed up here. Then once it's been degreased, it's a case then of using a flat wheel or whatever, not a flat wheel, a wire disc cup over the chassis to loosen all the rust. And then most probably, once I've done all that, it's been cleaned, it's been degreased, and I've shifted all the loose material, which the wire cup should do, then it will be a spray coating of epoxy 1-to-1, which is sticks like shit to a blanket chassis paint, and I shall paint the whole chassis. What I might do is start kind of, it's going to get painted in stages, I think. But because I don't want to leave this thing untreated. You can see what happens to the steel. It soon starts to rot. And while this is only surface rust on here, I really don't want to be encouraging it any further. I found another wee hole. So we are on the passenger side rail, and I just knocked a big lump of rust out here. This is where the damper mount goes. That's easy enough to fix there. Literally just chop it off over the top, weld it on. This is where the body mount should go. So I'm going to have to take this patch off here. This spring turret is good, happy with that. The spring turret on the other side's got big patches on it, fore and aft, so that might get cut off. And then in here, someone's put quite a lot of bitumen inside these sections on the rear cross member. So I've dug a fair amount out, and as you saw yesterday, there's a few holes in there. So the only way I could think of getting to those is to cut this down here, cut it along there with a 1mm cutting disc, clear all the crap out, weld in the holes, and then butt weld this back on again and grind the welds flat. Just one of those things that happens, I guess. It happens. I might as well do it properly, eh? And then that can come off, because I want to find out what's behind it. That piece there is going to come off anyway, because I'm going to splice in the chassis extension, taking it back up to its full length, take it across the top there, and up to the back of the spring mount here. So that'll come off. Cross member itself is pretty good. It's got this piece of crapple on the top here, which was a remnant, a hangover, I guess, from the frame that was welded onto the back end of this thing from its off-roading days. Seatbelt mounts are still there, which is good. Rear seatbelt mounts. There's one of them. Other one's over there. This bracket on here was for the brake flexi line. Normally the brake flexi line would sit on one of the cross members that goes across like this, and it kind of there's a bracket on the bottom of the cross member that goes across the top of the chassis. And on this side, this is where I'm talking about these bloody great big patches. So there would appear to be a patch here, but I don't think, I need to give it a really good clean up to find out what is going on here, because I don't know. That is certainly a patch, girt big patch, as is this. So it could just well be that because it extends onto the turret. Now I can't feel any holes on the inside of the turret, so I don't know what it is. I think someone just welded it up to the edge of the turret, spring turret. And on the return edge of the spring turret is one hole. You can see my pinky poking through it there. And again on this side we've got holes inside this section. So they need cutting out. Other than that though, got that bit done. Just wants grinding back. I've seen a lot worse. Seen it a lot longer as well. Who's nicked off my chassis? Silliness. Silliness. As you can see, it's just been going over this thing, just really just scraping the surface off, so that when I come to wash it, I'm actually dealing with something that's not loose on the surface. It just means I have to go over all this crap on the floors, what's come off the chassis. Some of it's under seal, some of it's sand, as you can see over here. But it just needs a a 1-inch chisel or a scraper. I'm not wire brushing it. I'm resisting the urge to use power tools on this, because it will, whatever salt I've got on this surface, it's going to get ground in. So I'm not going to do this for long, folks, but you can see how easily this shit comes off. And it's just a case of sitting here. Look, this is just like a wax surface. It's been put over the original paint on the chassis. You probably can't hear any of this because I'm scraping. But yeah, and all of this lot here, that's all original paint, original chassis paint. And then the rest of it is where the chassis paint's flaked off at some point. But really, really light surface rust underneath it. I need to tidy up these bits as well. So that's where that outrigger was badly welded on. So that just wants flapping back. And again, I'll do that once it's all been washed. Yeah, that's where I am with it. Softly, slowly, moving forwards, step at a time. But yeah, other than the obvious, there's been no real nasty surprises on this chassis. It's certainly a damn sight better than the one I did on the 1972 car. I suppose, you know, we'll see. Right, cracking on with this. You don't want to watch me doing this shit because it's just boring. It's a bit shitty, this job, but it's actually, you know, there's a degree of satisfaction with, you know, like just scraping off peaks like that. It's quite satisfying. It's all off. No, just coming off. And it keeps me busy. It's about 27, 28 degrees today. I thought I'd get on with this. Because then the idea is, once I've painted the front end of the chassis, I suppose I've taken the wrong fucking axle off really, but I wanted to look at some of these holes around the back end to see what was going to go on here. There's nothing to stop me relocating that axle back onto the chassis, it just pokes through the holes here. I'll put a nut on the other side. I'll leave the mounts on it for the time being, just to make life a little bit easier. Yeah, it's all a bit of a laugh, isn't it? Shits and giggles. Thought you might like to see that. So this is on the passenger side rail, and most of this, you can see where I've been scraping it. Most of this has just been original paint, chassis paint, and bare, very shiny steel underneath. Areas where the paint's lifted and rot's got in, but on the whole, up until these kind of rear gearbox mount holders, kind of this is where the gearbox cover mounts onto, and even that, you see. Up here, there's just a bit more surface corrosion. But then we get down to the outriggers, shiny. Behind the outrigger, shiny. So I've just been cleaning this up, but I was amused to find that. So obviously this thing's been stacked, and it's been stacked in an LR pile. So whoever made the chassis has probably made a shitload of them, just stacked them all up. Good, huh? I don't know how it's been written on. It's etched, isn't it? It's underneath the chassis paint. Cool. Fun that though, isn't it? What do you reckon? No? I'm a lunatic. Right. Okay. Oh, hello.